Well, hello. Welcome to our conversation. I'm Cullum Line, and with me, beside me, is my friend, but not my usual friend on that side of the couch. Who are you, good sir?
Yeah, I got swung over to the other side of the couch this week. I'm Clark Jaman, Coordinator of Evangelization and Adult Faith Formation here at St. Anne's Parish.
There you go. You are no longer in the hot seat. You are in the co-host corner of,
Okay,
I guess,
is
of the
this like a
couch.
promotion then?
Well, we'll see how today goes, I
Okay.
think, is maybe.
More like an interview.
There we go.
Okay.
It's a discernment
Didn't
process.
know what I was getting into.
Yeah, you might notice Father Matt is not with us. He's taking a well-earned vacation. Although we had to slightly interrupt to let him know government rule changes and if that affects us or not. We don't think it does a lot. Anyways, lots going on in the
By the
world.
time you watch this, you'll know.
Yeah.
Right now we're
So
living in the
it's-
midst of
But
complete chaos.
in the
and
meantime,
confusion.
I basically texted Father Matt to be like, so stuff is happening, but I think it's fine. Enjoy your time.
Okay, so you did text him.
I
Yeah.
did briefly,
Okay.
and he gave kind of a chuckle and a sigh. But
Yeah.
I said, we'll hold down the fort. We're trying our best, and so say a prayer for Father Matt. He's off rejuvenating, hopefully.
Yeah.
Maybe some nature and some libations and hiking, or I don't know, parasailing. I don't know what he's doing, but he's off having a good time. So
Yeah, we'll pray for him this week while he's just kind of relaxing and rejuvenating.
there you go. And I guess it's kind of like when the parent is away, the kids shall play. But
Yeah.
look at us, Father Matt. We're working.
Yeah, we're doing something. Actually, yesterday, Erin came by my office and she's like, it was like 3:15. Normally we have a coffee break at 3. She's like, what, are we not doing coffee because Father Matt's gone?
We were just all kind of in our own little bubble, and it's good. The new recruits here a little bit are keeping
Yeah.
us on our toes
That's
to keep the culture going. And so
Actually,
yeah, it's been fun.
just stopped by the front office just before I came over here, and Darlene was sitting in there. She had a little stool, and she was sitting with Trina, helping her out with some of the software. It was so good to see her back in the office. When I walked by, I was like, hey, Darlene, I knew you'd rethink this. I knew you'd come back. And she just gave me one of these.
Classic. But no, it's good. I mean, and the same with Jasmine too. Is they're still parishioners, still members of the community, and so we're really, really blessed for that. But it's exciting to still kind of onboard Aaron and Francis, as you may, I think we announced last week, has already started, and it's been fun getting to know her and get her plugged in. So if you see Francis online, even Facebook, she's on there, or you see her on Mass on Sunday, or you get an email from her, just welcome her, and
Yeah.
she seems lovely. I'm excited to have her part of the team.
Yeah, it's been great having those two around, and softens the blow a little bit, losing Jasmine and Darlene. We still miss them, but it's really great to have Aaron and Francis around too.
Yeah, I think we've been really blessed, just constantly been bringing great people in,
Yeah.
and I don't say that because I'm still somewhat newish, only here in, but there's just been a really good culture here that I think it's attractive, and it's been a great place to work, and I think that helps attract great individuals as well. And part of that is not just like the team, the office team, but just the culture of the parish.
Totally.
And I've just, I don't know, it's been on my mind recently, and I just want to shout out all of us St. Anne's people online is keep being who you are and doing what we're doing. That really makes the parish. It's more than just like 4 or 5 or 6 people on staff, but it's the hundreds of us and how we welcome and invite. And even this last week, I had 2 or 3 comments of people just being like, you got lots of good stuff going on in St. Anne's, and I sometimes react and I was like, what do you mean, specifically?
Yeah.
They say that little line, and then really what it gets down to is people fostering encounter and relationships,
Yeah.
and there's discipling, and a lot of it is just organic people just living the gospel,
Yeah.
and it's just really exciting to hear some of those stories. So
Yeah.
it's been great.
Yeah, oftentimes around the diocese, different priests or people or whatever will say to me like, oh man, there sure is a lot going on over there at St. Anne's. And I'm always like, I don't know, I guess so. I'm just kind of got my nose in down to the grind, and I don't really think of it like that. But just whenever there's a need, there's always somebody that pops up and offers some solution or some innovation. And it's really awesome to have such a great community. I know when I started here at the parish, working here a little over 2 years ago, I just felt just overwhelmed by the welcome and the smiling faces and just the people who are ready to kind of take me in and journey with me. So it's been an awesome ride.
Yeah, and it's been fun to just get back to some of our stuff yeah, even in light of all the rules and what we can do or not, like we had another junior youth and that kind of went good. I know one of our kind of a new high school small group is going to start kind of getting together here today, a few of them. And it's just exciting that like, the work is continuing, and there's people stepping up. And I know you guys have a new round of faith studies here just about to launch. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, really exciting. We've got a good group, 45 people registered, so we're not doing them all at the same time to stay COVID friendly, but different groups meeting in different places throughout the week, 45 different people doing faith studies, so it's pretty awesome. And we're like 24 hours away from the official launch here and still got some questions about the COVID regulations that are constantly changing. But yeah, I'm sure we're going to figure it all out, and we'll definitely be safe and just a lot of fun and a lot of people growing. So really looking forward to that.
That's awesome, man.
We had our opening team meeting last night, and a lot of good ideas and a lot of good thoughts bouncing around that meeting. So it's going to be awesome.
Cool. Well, praying for you guys in that group. I guess let's dive into it. It might be a little bit shorter because we don't have the master of ceremonies and Father Matt to get us through here, but as two lay guys, we're going to toss out our ideas and our little feedback of what we heard Father Matt share. So we're talking about weddings and feasts and parties and wine and robes. Oh my, lots of good stuff happening.
It's very appropriate to on Thanksgiving weekend, like this homily and this conversation about the homily. Kind of like couched my Thanksgiving feast with my family. Yeah. So yeah, very, very appropriate.
Yeah. And so we're going to jump in, but I guess the big picture, which you had kind of said you found interesting was, this is a bit of a snapshot of kind of the invitation and, the call and the experience of heaven. And Father Matt even sharing of how sometimes it's viewed in the worlds and we're all hanging out on clouds and really, God's got a better picture, a better plan and more glorious plan. And you had a bit of insight of just, the Catholic take is unique in many ways of this whole journey relationship with God.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, heaven definitely gets kind of a bad rap, I think. It kind of, like the common portrayals seems like kind of a boring place. I forget which era of art that was. I think it was maybe after the Gothic era or whatever, but like angels were just portrayed as baby faces with wings on them, like without even bodies, just like the baby face with a wing. And it's like, that doesn't seem that fun. Like kind of, so I like how Father Matt kind of broke that down and talked about what it's really like.
That heaven isn't just like a precious moments figurine, maybe?
Yeah, precious moments, yeah. My mom loved collecting those.
I got lots of them from my first communion still up on my shelf at home. The cute but maybe not accurate is maybe what we're going for. Yeah. And I Father Matt kind of touched on is the idea that, he said it was funny. It seems like an unnecessary message maybe, that he took at. It was that someone gives you something great, you just take it. It's obvious, right? And I liked his insight. He said, well, sometimes it's hard to receive the gift. Yeah. And even though, his interpretation that he went was a little bit about the generosity of God, right? In the call and that he provides with the robes. And we might get into later of like, well, if you don't have a robe and that understanding, but it is the idea that sometimes it's hard just to receive as much to give. And it just triggered today, I was preparing is thinking of, there was a little bit of a call in our junior youth last night about reconciliation and the idea of doing for others what God has done for us. So this idea of you've been forgiven, you've been redeemed, right? Christ has kind of been the bridge, to use some of our faith study analogies to kind of, to tear down the walls of sin and the separation. And then that kind of call of like, okay, well, how is that getting played out now in your own life with God, but also with your neighbor? And so one of the questions in kind of the small group, to some of the guys that I was with was like, is it easier to give forgiveness or to receive forgiveness? Yeah. And a lot of them said like, it's hard, but a lot of times it's harder to ask and to receive it. Yeah. And it was interesting. A few kind of, I had shared this idea of like, and I had shared, sometimes I just don't think I'm worthy of it. Mm-hmm. Even though I might preach it and understand it, but when it comes down to it, sometimes I hold back because it's like, well, what I did was really awful, or I'm not worth being at such a great party. So I'm going to stay on the outside, even though I keep being invited,
Yeah, I think sometimes it is totally way harder to receive a gift than to give the gift. I think of like how often we fight over who's going to pay the tab at a restaurant or whatever. Like I know in my family that can just go on and go on until somebody like makes a break for the area at the front with the debit machine or whatever, and it's like, I'm going to pay. Because it's like uncomfortable a little bit when people pay for us or give us gifts. And also, whether or not we like to acknowledge this, gifts are given with expectations of return, right? And so that's another part of it. And that's the thing that makes God's gifts, Christ's gifts, so just radically earth-shattering and different, is that he gives this great gift of his own son to us when we're just like totally undeserving it, and we can totally not repay in any sort of way. And it's just this total gratuitousness, over the top gift that we don't deserve, and we can never give anything back in repayment. But he just gives it to us anyways.
Yeah, I think that's great. As we'll jump here in a second, is there is almost this understanding. I like how you put it. I think of the term sometimes we think in economics when I was in university of like tied aid. That it's like I give you the gift, but there's an unwritten expectation or how that's going to come back, how I'm going to benefit from giving the gift. And and we know, there's science to saying that, giving people are happier people, right? Like there's science that proves this, in that sense. But we also know that when you give without expectation, the science also proves that you're happier than when you do have that motive. But it's almost like, as we get later to this idea of the robe and, do you enter in or not enter in? And this constant call is, do we maybe stay on the fringe? Do I stay on the fringe sometimes of what I think God is calling me to? Because I'm worried about like the boot, like what's coming with it, and so we doubt it or we question it or we just kind of hold back a little bit, like that we almost take that experience we have, with each other, and we just kind of say, well, obviously that's how God works too. Yeah. It's hard to not replicate your lived experience.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a trap that we can fall into. Yeah.
So it was interesting. Father Matt had kind of led, through the homily of this idea of getting through the party. First, God prepares, it's all the good stuff, the wine, and then he gets to the idea of the invitation, the round of invitation that like ultimately everybody's invited, right? The salvation that Christ won for us is for all. But then he kind of got into the idea of like, the rejection. And he had a bit of an interesting kind of just take or just thought of how this relates to even the Jewish people in that time and place.
Yeah, sometimes we can read these parables and they just seem so far removed from us. I actually like something that Bishop Barron said about this parable. He related it to Flannery O'Connor's stories. And so if Flannery O'Connor is a Catholic author, but if you read her stuff, her stories, it doesn't seem very Catholic. It's not very nice. It's very like it's kind of gruesome, and it's definitely not PG rated. But something she says is that you've got to, in a culture that's deaf, you need to shout. And so I think this parable is kind of like that. I think Jesus is kind of like trying to wake people up, trying to grab them by the shoulders and say like, hey, like you need to take this seriously, or you need to like repent. You need to be aware of what's happening here, this gift that God's giving to us. And so like obviously the Jewish people, they've had thousands of years of this, right? They've had prophets come into them and telling them to kind of foreshadowing this idea that God is going to allow us to marry him somehow in some sort of sense, and God is going to make this offer to us. And then when he sends his son in Jesus, this has been going on for thousands of years. This has been hinted at and spoken to the people already. And so yeah, I guess like in the parable, the king is kind of like God the Father, and the marriage feast with his son the son is Jesus. And we've got to be careful to not get too literal with this, because it's not an allegory or a straight up story about how God is. Like obviously God doesn't have these tempers and goes off and rampages and kills people.
We hope not,
because they don't accept his invitation or whatever. So we've got to be careful with taking this too literally. But like I said, this is a story that's meant to kind of grab us by the shoulders and wake us up. and yeah, so the people in the story receiving the invitation are kind of like the Israelites, the Jews, starting with Abraham, who have received this invitation, and they didn't accept it. Like this is almost for us like getting an invitation from like the president or the prime minister or something. Like this is the invitation. Like we got a
This is
personal
like the
invitation.
golden ticket.
Yeah, it's totally the golden ticket.
It's the Charlie on the Chocolate Factory.
You would never just say, oh, like I've got to go to my farm or I've got some errands to do that day. Like this is, you would rearrange whatever you have to do around this.
Yeah,
and
totally.
They just kind of blew it off. And yeah, sometimes we can do that. But I think the Israelites had done that through their history so many times. And then they get this opportunity to attend the feast, and they literally shoot the messenger. I guess it doesn't say shoot, but they killed the messenger.
Is this the original root of that expression? I don't know if it
I don't
is,
know.
but it's good example of it.
Yeah. So yeah.
But it's interesting to what you say, to put that in that context and to say like we're just as susceptible to the same traps.
Yeah.
Even though Christ has come, and like it's God's love has been proven, and showed and revealed, and it's easy to sometimes as Christians rag on the Jews, and we have to catch ourselves to be like, wait a minute, like in our place and in our time, would we have understood? Would we have known?
Yeah.
And so we have to have some mercy and understanding, right? And praying through that, and to say, but even now, like, so I grew up Catholic, right? I've heard this story and it's been preached all that time, but how often, do I really receive and understand it, and respond to it? And I think Father Matt was good to kind of, this idea that this is a generous God, not just in gifts, but in invitation, that the invitation is for all, and that he continues to call, and he had that interpretation that I like that he brought up, as a kid, of this thing with the robe, because I thought of that too. And to be like, oh, geez, like that seems like a bit of a jerk move,
Yeah.
If wouldn't you expect that they would have him? And so I liked what he offered, about the idea that, that they would provide, for the guests of the party. And but you, not so much to counter, but to say like, and I think it goes to maybe your point of this idea. It is a bit of a shock story or parable to get attention, that there is this, many are called, few are chosen, in the bigger scheme of things, but there's a bit of a warning maybe, I guess, in this.
Yeah, totally. Like Father Matt said, that's the idea of the wedding banquet, the wedding robe being provided is just one interpretation. I tend towards more the idea that like that many are called, few are chosen. Like this guy was entering the feast unworthily, like he didn't come prepared. Like, so maybe the wedding garment is something like the baptismal renewal that we experience through the sacraments, especially beginning through baptism. Maybe something like that. So it's kind of an invitation to check ourselves and be like, am I coming to the feast prepared? Like, so when we go to Mass on Sunday or any day really, am I coming with like a grudge against somebody, or am I coming ready? Or am I coming to the feast with something on my conscience, or am I ready to offer that up at the Mass and receive forgiveness for that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that's a merciful but still a challenging thing to say.
Yeah.
It's not that it's got to be like, oh, you're done, but to say like, if they had known in this, to say a little bit of doing the work, still knowing God's love, God's invitation is still there, kind of regardless, right? But if you're going to get excited, if you're going to go on a camping trip and that kind of stuff, like you're going to go pack your bags, you're going to do this stuff for the journey that you've been called to, right? Like that's just good. That's a good response.
Yeah, it's almost like God does offer us the robe, but we still have to put it on. We still have to find one that fits us and put one on us. And if we just walk into the wedding feast without it, it's kind of like, well, you're still really the one to blame,
Yeah, and and I think that goes to his idea that God's gifts keep on coming, but as Father Matt was talking about, but the call to conversion keeps always coming. God always has more for us. He was talking about, but also that is that call, right? And there's a constant need to be saying yes. And I think this goes to the the big Catholic understanding of conversion, right, and the call to yes is that it's not just the moment, it's not just baptism, right, but it's this constant renewal, right, these constant promptings from God. Are we listening? Are we responding? And I thought of that, like in the context, like COVID life, like things went on pause, and we're trying to bring some parish life back to what we're capable of in this context, but also like I don't know. I definitely have had moments in 6-8 months. I don't know how long this has been going on, of just being okay with some of my spiritual habits or disciplines of saying like, Lord, I got enough going on, And I know there's a lot of families and they're freaking out and trying to figure out school and daycare and this, and to say like, we're just trying to tread water, and I'm not trying to belittle that because I know a lot of us are maxed out and anxiety is super high, but like we're not called to tread water with our relationship with God at the same time, and I know that I can definitely do that.
Yeah, totally. I think the call of the gospel is really a call to be relentless against that idea of just like falling into mediocrity. I know Courtney and I had this discussion recently. It's like, prayer has been really tough in the mornings. Like we both agree that mornings is the best time for us to pray. But it's been really tough with a 7-month-old and a 2-year-old at home.
Preach, brother.
And and we're just wanting to get back into like a time of quiet meditative prayer rather than kind of the we want to take it to the next level in our personal prayer lives. And I find that when I come to work and pray in the chapel, there's a benefit of working at a church. I can come and do my morning prayer,
definitely, yep,
or whatever time of prayer in at my workplace in the chapel, which is wonderful. But like wanting to reestablish that. And so like just talking about like how early do we have to go to bed and how early do we have to get up the next morning to make this happen, and just like really making some sacrifices to make that happen.
It goes to that preparation type of thing, right?
Totally.
And that's even, I noticed, if I might have mentioned, a few times, these men's ministries and, what we're going to do maybe on the parish or in I have my own kind of personal men's group, small group that we're in. And I felt like this need. I was like, it was a muscle, a discipline that was kind of missing. And it's like, I'm looking forward to having to make sure I go to bed before like at least 11 on Wednesdays.
Oh man, I'm thinking like 9:30.
Yeah, well, I'm a night owl, so that is early for me, But like the idea of like the alarm hits at 5:10, I gotta be out of the door at 5:35. Like that's coming one way or the other, right? Tomorrow, and it's either I'm gonna be lazy, and not respond, and I'm not in solidarity with my brothers who are taking that sacrifice to be there. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, I got to do that. I got to do that work. So I got to move everything up. I have to be more diligent with my day, a whole day before, to be prepared and to be ready to kind of receive what God wants to give me tomorrow. I
think it was Catherine Doherty who said a decision to go to bed late is a decision not to pray in the morning. And that really, and the thing about going to men's group, right? When I go to my men's group, I find that the other guys in my men's group challenge me to get back on track and to be relentless against the spirit of mediocrity, like we were saying, and then it just kind of snowballs in a positive way. And next thing you know, that decision to go to bed earlier, that decision to get up early and make our faith a priority, just kind of gets more easy and more natural. But then there's always the tendency to slide back. So it's kind of that constant back and forth, constant battle in the spiritual life.
And that's what I love, frankly, being Catholic and having Sunday and having homilies and having liturgical seasons, is because it's almost like God knows the benchmark. He's like, you can go about 3 months and then things might go off the rails. So I'm going to give you another shift in the liturgical season or something going on. And that I've really embraced kind of these seasons or these moments as opportunities to check in. I kind of come from a pretty, a family has a good, strong devotion to Mary and kind of a central part in some of my formation. And it's like, okay, it's October. I married a Portuguese woman, like October and May, like these are the months of Our Lady. So it's like, I try to do a daily rosary, but there's definitely periods and months where that gets off the rails and it's much more sporadic in this. But I know every October and May, I'm usually pretty good because like it's September 30th. And I was like, okay, Colin, you say you love Mama Mary. Are you actually, where are you at with this habit? Right. So it's like, I have 2 built-in check months for that check monks. Maybe the monks are checking in on me. And I think that's just great, that to have a liturgical year, to have things like the homily or the Gospels of like really trying to use them as check-ins. And maybe as we look to kind of wrap up, Father Matt kind of encapsulated these last little kind of run of the readings of what, that seem very instructive, do this or else, on the surface, but really that they're really about an invitation, right?
That's right. Yeah.
To the relationship with God,
and that gift.
That kind of links up. Although we've been going through the letter of Ephesians a little bit, junior youth, but the same idea to say that when you go to these, it really is instructions, that Paul's given to these communities, but to say like, but more out of like a mentorship type of approach, right? To say they didn't know how to be church or how to be community, right? And so they needed someone to kind of accompany them, to kind of guide them along. And the challenge was to say, when you hear these readings, can you put yourself in that same place to say, how are they, instructing, but how are they guiding me in how to live, how I'm being invited, right? And how well am I responding? Yeah. And so I've really appreciated these last little runs on this theme.
Yeah. I pray that we just really take that message to heart and just really receive the gift and take this as an opportunity day by day to renew our commitment and to renew our prayer life and our response to that gift. And hopefully just day by day we can become stronger with that commitment in our families and in our marriages and in our vocations, and just really enter into that wedding feast.
Amen.
Is that a good place to leave
off? Yeah, can't say it better than that, my friend. So on behalf of Clark and myself and Father Matt on vacation, hope you're well. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Be safe, be healthy. Get your prayer on. Say a rosary if you haven't. It's October. Talk to Jesus' mom. She wants to guide you to her son. And you be well. And we'll talk to you next week in some shape, manner, or form. I'm not sure who's going to be in the musical hot seat, but we'll figure it out. But you be well. We'll talk to you soon.
God bless. Thank you.
Bye.